Hey everybody, I'm back. I was sidelined for a few months, but I'm back. We got some projects going on for the V8 4Runner behind me, and then the NB Miata behind me as well. In this video, we'll be installing racing buckets and the NB Miata, 5-point harnesses, and super low seat rails. I watched a few other videos on racing harness installation, and in most of those videos, the stock seat rail bolt holes are used for the harness installation. After reading some of the theory behind racing harnesses, I realized this isn't correct and it screws up the geometry of the racing harness. In this video, I think I found a really good happy medium where I didn't turn my Miata into a full-blown race car, but I came up with a great solution to mount the harnesses. Let me know what you think. I think you'll enjoy it. Leave a comment below. Lastly, just to remind everybody the philosophy for this build, I want no compromises with my NB Miata. I live in an area where it's really hot and really humid. On track days, it's great to have air conditioning in the car, so I wasn't gonna remove my air conditioning or my power steering. Going forward, I'm gonna modify this Miata in a unique and tasteful manner, and I think you'll enjoy it. So please keep following the Miata content. Have a great day. I hope whatever you're working on is going well. Enjoy the video.
For this installation, you don't need a lift. You can do it all on the ground. Here are the Recaro Pole Position seats. I think they're made out of fiberglass. They're made in Germany, and the first shipment container got lost at sea. Here's the Blackbird fire extinguisher bracket, and then also these Nagisa super low slider seat rails. I reupholstered and added bolstering to the OEM seats in the past, and they held up really well, and I'll be saving them for a future project. And I also rewrapped the steering wheel in the past. I'll be saving all this stuff, but for now, the Recaros are going in.
What's going on? How's it going, man? Wait, you don't like the hardtop?
Get in it.
No,
Get in it.
I'm good. I have to show the seats. He's Myron.
I'm also changing my steering wheel, so I'm going to disconnect the battery before I disconnect the airbag. The first step is obviously to remove the OEM seats, just 14mm bolts. On 2001 NB Miatas at least, if you unhook this white connector, the seatbelt light just stays off. After these seats are out, a little bit of vacuum action. I'm not going to go through the steering wheel installation on this video, but I ended up going with a different hub adapter that could still reuse the factory clock spring. This one kind of bothered me. These Nagisa seat rails were really poor from the factory. What happened is they transposed two of the tops of the rails, and I ended up having to basically grind off a bunch of tack welds and disassemble the seat rails and then flip everything around and then re-weld the tack welds after I got that done. It was a lot of work. And then also the seat rails, you can only mount to basically the top mounting position. Otherwise, these Recaro Pole positions hit the floor. So the only position you can use is the top position. So they're not that adjustable. And also getting them installed in a way that they didn't bind on the floor of the car or bind on anything else was really difficult. You have to basically tighten it like one bolt at a time, and while making sure the sliders all still work. Maybe that's par for the course, but I did not have a lot of success with these Nagisa seat rails. I'm just checking the seat fitment, and I probably had to do this about a dozen times between both seats. Here's the solution I came up with to mount my harnesses. I used these 9-inch long steel angle pieces to straddle the frame rail that goes underneath your feet. So I use these, and as you can see, I doubled up the metal and I tapped into the metal, but you don't necessarily have to do that. Alternatively, you could just use angle, drill a hole in it, and then use a big nut on the other side and bolt right into that. These backer plates, they're 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. The purpose of the backer plates is so that the harnesses don't pull through the floor in the event of a crash. Here's one of the seatbelt straps, and the bolts have a larger diameter that prevents the bolt from going too far into the hole. But you also have to use Wavy washers on these to get them to articulate and not flop around and also not bind up. And I'll be posting those in a link in the description. I'm not going to show a ton of the details related to the fabrication because it's fun and it's kind of like art. I just used a bandsaw to cut these pieces out. I used a MIG welder, but like I said, you don't have to. You can do it your own way. If you don't have a bandsaw like this, I highly recommend it. This one's from Harbor Freight. It's cheap and it does a great job. In this video, I'll be making a lot of my brackets out of this A36 mild structural steel. I believe the material is 3/16 of an inch thick. I bought this steel angle at Home Depot or Ace Hardware. It's just 1 inch by 1 inch, or maybe it's 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 steel angle. I think it's 1/8 of an inch thick. After I use the bandsaw, I always clean the parts up with either an angle grinder or a grinding stone. I take the burrs off the metal. The burrs mess you up if you're welding, and also they're sharp. I already tacked all these square pieces, so I'm just gonna lay a bead down on either side. Here's how they look after those first few welds, and just because I can, I'm gonna lay a bead on the top and the bottom as well now. Here's the welder I'm using. It's a MIG welder, a Millermatic 175. It's a great welder. If you have the means, I highly recommend it. Here are those 4 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch backing plates after they're done. The one on the left I cleaned up with a wire brush, and the other ones are how it looks with the slag all over it after the MIG weld. Next, I did the welding on the long, skinny 9-inch angle piece. For jobs like this where I'm drilling a dozen holes in steel, even if it's just mild structural steel, after a while it's really taxing on your body. A drill press helps out immensely. This is just, again, a cheap drill press. I think it was from Harbor Freight, maybe Northern Tool. It's a great tool to have. Unbeknownst to me, seats and seat belts all use a 7/16 by 20 bolt size. Even in foreign cars like the Miata, I think it's a safety thing. And since I had all this high quality hardware from Corbeau, this grade 8 stuff, I ended up just rolling with it. I got the tap at Northern Tool, and here I am just tapping my own hole. Here are those backing plates after I drilled and tapped the holes. I have 4 of them shown here, but I ended up making 8 of them. I found out after I made these that Sparco makes plates that already have the threaded nut on them, and I'll post those in the description. Sorry, I didn't show this installation, but I installed that horizontal black hard dog bolt-in harness bar. I got it from Goodwin Racing. Here's how the seat looks after a test fit. I'm rattle canning those parts with VHT Roll bar and chassis paint. It's a very durable paint and I love it. I use it on everything. I did not originally plan on using these right angle brackets. I think they're zinc plated. They're 1/8 of an inch thick. I got them on eBay. I'll post a link in the description of the video, but they're really rigid, and after reading a bunch of theory on seat belt harnesses, this was the right part to use to get the belt to articulate correctly. Here's how all the parts look together. They're not all painted yet, but this is how they're gonna look when they're being installed in the car. I just used a jack to install these. For the shoulder straps, all you do is remove the metal buckle and you follow the exact same harness path that it took through the buckle originally, but instead of the buckle, you just go around the harness bar. It's really simple. Just copy your existing shoulder straps and it'll turn out the way you want it to. Quickly, I just wanted to show you what the final product is going to look like and show you how the harnesses articulate around these angle brackets. And I'll show you how to do this all in a second. I just wanted to give you a sneak peek of what it looks like in the end. I guess 50 is too much. I measured where I wanted my holes to be, and I checked that this worked underneath the car. But I still needed a template to cut the carpet. I used masking tape. Mark the center of the hole. Trace out the hole for this with something round that you have laying around. I don't know, perhaps like a 7/16 washer. I still use X-Acto knives for stuff like this. It's okay. You can call me a nerd. I'm pretty sure that's rounder than the factory hole. Here are all 4 holes. I made 2 in the back and then 2 up front. The 2 up front straddle that frame rail that goes underneath the car. For drilling holes in thin metal, I like to make a mark with a marker like that, and then I use a center punch to make a little divot right in the center of the hole. When you drill holes in really thin metal, if you're using a normal drill bit, it gets pulled up into the flutes of the bit and it kind of grabs the material. So I use these step bits because that doesn't happen. They have straight flutes, so it doesn't catch the metal and bring it up into the bit. This tool is also a lifesaver. It's a deburring tool. I use it after I drill holes to clean out the burrs around the edge of the hole. The last thing to do is install these things. I always try to use grade 8 or class 10.9 hardware because it's stronger than the cheap stuff that you could get at most stores. And for reasons like this, I'm using a torque wrench here and I don't know what a good torque spec is, but 50 foot-pounds seems reasonable and I don't want my bolts to break. So I have the nice hardware already and I can be confident that these will take 50 foot-pounds. Here's how everything looks tightened. And this is where it's sitting on the floor. The rest of the installation is really straightforward. You just bolt the harnesses to the brackets. In this clip, I actually have it bolted on incorrectly. I have it bolted onto the inside. I was testing it out and seeing if it could articulate better. This was not correct, but you get the point. It's time to install the seats for real this time. I lied. I did use my lift. I wanted to get you guys a good view of the underside and show you what these plates look like. Here's the passenger side. When you're doing this, you want to watch out for these metal hard lines. And then I ended up hitting it with rubberized undercoating. I'm not sure if it's that helpful, but anything to prevent future rust. Here's how it looks with everything installed. The seats do rub on the door cards a little bit. They don't rub a lot, and it's still really easy to close the doors. I will say, I had these temporarily mounted in a couple weeks ago, and I went to a Cars and Coffee, and the Miata was a hit. This is what everything looks like once it's in the car, in case you're interested in doing this with your Miata. I did not install these Recaros because they look good. Obviously, it's an added benefit. I installed them so I had better control over my car and I wasn't sliding around as much when I was driving it. And I wanted to pick the best seats I could. That's why I went with Recaro, and I wanted good harnesses in the event of a crash, so I picked these Corbeaus with a racing helmet and a Hans device. It should be a pretty safe setup. The Blackbird fire extinguisher mount was really easy to install and it came with very good hardware. I was impressed. I was going to film a spoken outro with me talking at the camera, but I'm so sick of talking. Instead, I'm just going to show some footage of me driving on one of the best roads I know of in Mexico. Seriously, check this road out. My R888s are so loud. Those are not 4 bad wheel bearings, even though it sounds like it. The Recaros and the harnesses are awesome. The car is not very comfortable on long distances now, not like it ever was, but for racing seats, they basically have anti-lumbar support where your spine bends the wrong way, so you need like a pad or a cushion on your lower back. But the Recaros are really good for short distances. The increase in control over the vehicle with these racing seats has been nothing short of amazing, and I cannot wait to get it back on the track. I'll just play some cool footage here in the last couple minutes to wrap this video up.
Recording. Yeah, there's 7 hours of
okay.
SD card, so
Yeah, so it's not.
out of battery.
All right. I'll lead the way.
Gotta hit those roundabouts. Oh yeah, just like that.